Welcome back into the One More K podcast. We are on episode number 25. My name is Marcus. I am here with Ned as usual. Good evening, Ned.
Good evening, Marcus. As always, thank you for your patience with my lack of organization. For you listeners who know that I live in Singapore, I have temporarily, for a week's holiday, moved closer to Marcus's spiritual home of Vietnam. And it is an hour earlier. So Marcus messaged me. He's like, are you coming or not? What's going on? This is episode 25. Get on the show. But
no one else, no listeners knows this. So it's all behind the scenes, all like these special cuts that are happening. We are all coffee up, we're good to go. 25 episodes in that. It is pretty amazing. If you can look at it as a ultra marathon, I always on my side 25 was an important number because you're a quarter away there already, whether it's miles or kilometers. 75 more to go to our big 100. I can't wait.
And look, we talk about this a lot. The average number of podcasts is 8, and only 10% make it to episode 20. So we're at the front of the pack, man. We are right at the front. And, in ultra, as long as you don't stop, you know what? For next week's show, I will take it on myself to find out how many podcasts make it to episode 100.
Wow. You're doing some analysis. Are you actually going to sit down and do research yourself?
I mean, I just said that on the spur of the moment. I will take a note to do it. No.
So there's something called Google, or like you have all these websites, Fiverr, you can outsource things in case you didn't notice. Yeah.
I try not to. I just talk, and then that's about it, really.
Wonderful. Well, number one podcast to talk business in trail and ultra running. On that note, actually, I saw a tweet from Camille Heron saying we should really start to separate ultra and trail running. Ultra, road running, and trail running is something very, very different. What do you think? We put them all together in one sentence, but I'm trying to actually say them both in the same time, like ultra and trail running, because I do think I agree they're not the same.
They are really not the same. And I hear it on all the shows. People are like, ultra, trail, ultra. I was actually just listening to Jim Walmsley's post-race interview with I Run Far, and we'll get into Western States in a minute. But he even said it. I was just listening like a couple of hours ago. He's like, would I ever go back to road ultra? Do I really want to run 100K on the road? Because, he got within like 20 seconds of he did like 6 hours, 14 minutes or something. I don't remember. They're different sports. Ultra and trail and ultra road, ultra trail. And look, we know within ultra, there's, 24-hour track, there's 6-day, is a 24-hour track race even in the same sport as Western States? I mean, they're both running, but that's about it. So I do think we need to separate. Well, don't know how.
I did find interesting quickly on this one that this year we had on Western States, I'm already going back into it, Howie Lewis was running, which you all know is the world record holder in backyard racing. So there was highlighted a lot during the race. So, that this guy coming from backyard coming to Western States right now. And also we had the other lady, Leah Yingling, who was famously doing the 6 days event with Lululemon. She also did, she came, I think, let me just double check quickly, but she came 10th, female side. So also she was presented as, she did this long ultra race and now coming to Western States. So it is, even the Western States people are recognizing other sports exist and are talking about the runners coming to those races. And those runners, you can tell, got a lot of following. I mean, Howie Lewis was equally popular on the Western States course or at the expo then I was saying. But anyway, let's kind of go to Western States. I had the amazing time of my life. I was very lucky to be in the Olympic Valley in California. I got sunburned. If you watch the video, you can see my nose got a bit of a sunburn. The sun extremely intense. I didn't expect that. I have to say, what a great sport. What a great community. I have chilled saying this. It was so much fun to go to Western States. I did not expect it. I was actually quite nervous going into it, to be honest with you. Like, I felt like this guy from Asia coming to Western States to all this, all the champs. I think it's the race to meet everyone you have to meet in a super small setting. This amount of people is so tiny that kind of meets in the valley there. Compared to, I can only imagine, UTMB or even races in Vietnam where it's so much bigger, in Singapore and in Thailand. This is actually tiny, and it's great to meet people. So I was going into it saying, "Oh my God, I it's going to be overwhelming to meet everyone at the same time within like 10 meters." So that was my first impression. Like, it's actually quite tiny and freaking beautiful. It's hard to put this into words. So I have lots to share from my experience and my insights and observations. And yeah, I also have, of course, a lot of business trends to share. I mean, I'm always going into it also with my business mind, and I would love to share some of them. But yeah, Ned, you were part of my journey
Well,
from the outside.
so so it was so fun to, Marcus was sending me pictures of Marcus with Gordy Ainsley, Marcus with Harvey Lewis, Marcus with Scott, and I loved it. I loved it, loved it, loved it. And Marcus, I don't know if I told you, knew I was in India, so I had been traveling a bit. I was in India. Marcus called me. It was like 11 p.m. India time or 10 p.m. I was waiting to get on a plane back to Singapore from a 2-day trip or a 1-day trip to India. Marcus, I don't know if I told you, but I was sat in the airport McDonald's eating a McFlurry and chips in McDonald's, and you were breathing the Western States mountain air. I thought the juxtaposition of these two things was quite wonderful in that I can sometimes learn to eat crap, but I would like the excitement in your voice as you talked about you just running with Billy Yang and running with Dylan Bowman. But tell me, I think I got a good sense of it, but dig in a bit more because, as you say, it was an amazing experience. But what are your feelings as you reflect?
Let's structure this conversation a bit into 3 parts. I think there's a pre-race part, then there's a race part, and then there's a post-race part. I think all are valid points to look into. The race part, obviously, we have to cover the times and what the athletes have achieved. But quickly on the pre-race part, what I didn't know, and I only realized when I was there, that actually the Black Arrow race that was organized a weekend before in the same valley by Salomon. So you had the 24K Sky Run in the same valley by Salomon a weekend before. So it was like this 7 days of trail running bonanza happening in the Olympic Valley, where you had people like Dylan Bowman already being there for many days and who stayed on into the Olympic Valley for that. So apparently when I came on Tuesday, people were already there from the Black Arrow race and still there. So that Olympic resort really made use of its place and had 2 races within 7 days and 2 major races in 7 days. You know? There was already a lot of things happening the days before. That's one. I think the second one is I was quite surprised again how small the expo was. There was just a few people with a few tents and a few things going on compared to what I've seen in Asia, which is much more commercial. I was expecting more to see, but again, I think it's just more grassroots and much smaller event than what we see usually in other places. What I found interesting is 2 clear trends. One was the female race got a lot of attention. So there was a lot of T-shirts handed out saying, "We are here for the women's race." It was very clear that there was an agenda by certain people who wanted to highlight the very strong female field, which I do think is all valid, that this year saw a very strong female starting field. But they made it a point to hand out T-shirts or actually sell T-shirts in exchange for donations. So maybe a fifth of people were wearing this T-shirt. We're here for the women's race. So that got a lot of attention that people want to get to the women's race. Secondly, what I found interesting as well was the indigenous part got really highlighted. And I'm not entirely sure how to place this right now, but just in terms of stage time, film screening time, conversations that were happening, a lot about indigenous. So whether it's Native Americans, whether it's from Latin America, there's a lot of attention being given to those minority groups, I would say.
I think it's great. I think it's, the world is a changing place. 100 years ago, people didn't have access to information. And, if we look back 100 years, people will be horrified by the behavior of many countries. And the reality is that many indigenous people in many countries got, and again, we're not going to dig into this on this as an ultra running show, but the world is now way more informed. And I think people are just have the opportunity to, say how they feel and give voice. So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's very common now that before any major event, I've seen it in the US, that they give a speech about the land of the people. So they basically respect the Native Americans. They are aware that in this case the Western States course is going through the old tribal lands of a certain Native American tribe. So they make a big announcement beforehand, and they make all these statements. It's not just. I also saw it in other, like even like a theater and a comedy club where people do that now. So it's
Wow, it's good.
Americans are becoming fully aware of the history, not just anymore slavery, but even what happened before. So that seems to be a big thing.
You see it in Australia as well.
I see. Okay.
Very much.
Yeah, and I think then, of course, you bump into Petter Engdahl. I mentioned that before. How
you did.
Petter is such a friendly, nice guy, and his girlfriend Nora as well. Such an amazing couple. We hang out quite a bit and enjoy conversations about what they do in Norway there with Killian and John and just seeing them all close up from online to offline. That step is just amazing, and you realize how these images online are just beautiful, but the people are just so much more real and human when you see them. It's very cool. Yeah.
But it is again, Debo's statement, best sport in the world. It is still a tiny sport, right? And the reality is you are not going to get to sit next to Ronaldo or Tom Brady or Tiger Woods. You're not going to get to hang with them. You're just not, right? Whereas in this sport, you absolutely can.
It is a sport where I thought that the ratio of people being approachable and their reach online is actually pretty good. So you can approach people like Jim Wormsley and Harvey Lewis, who have 500,000, 250,000 followers, very easily. So it's still pretty good ratio where you just walk up to them and talk to them. So it's unlike, I mean, they don't have 60 million followers like Ronaldo or I don't know whoever, Rihanna, but still the reach they have is still significant, and the approachability there is very low. So it's pretty good ratio, I think.
And were there many in the village? Were there many people like you just fanboying around?
So very good question. I was surprised by that pretty much everyone was a runner or a crew member or a pacer. I did not see many other brands as well running around that were just there to network. It almost like the question is who was not there, right? And I can make a very, 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 very long list of brands who were not there. Like Mountain wasn't there, Spring Energy wasn't there, Huma wasn't there. Just talking about nutrition, I didn't see anyone from Normal. Right? I only thing that I found very funny though was that Nike, which is competing with Hoka, was giving every runner a free pair of shoes at the side.
No.
So
really?
I was like, I met a German runner, a big shout out to Sasha here, and who made it within time. He got his buckle, but yeah, he was telling me, Marcus, you have this Hoka event, and then you have this Nike guys running around and giving you free shoes.
That's nuts.
It's so smart.
Who would have thought 15 years ago, the Hoka boys couldn't even get a pair of shoes, and now Nike, the giant in the room, is running around on the side of a Hoka event. What the hell?
I think Nike is catching up. I heard some news also in other parts in Asia where they are now introducing more marketing, but let's see. I think it was significantly to see all the teams. So it's really how people organize themselves in these teams. So like Adidas Terex team was a big one. And I've seen this with some runners, right? The North Face team, Katie Scheid, was very omnipresent. They had all the film crews for the team. So it's almost like these little tribes running around, like, and then followed by, the coaches, by the massage people, by the photographers, of course. So the Hoka team was a big one. So it's funny how you can always see little groups running around and being followed by another, group. And I think in that case, Hoka stood out, North Face stood out, Adidas Terex stood out. Normal had 2 or 3 runners, I think. But yeah, I think those are the biggest teams I observed.
And for you, going around as the Lekker guy, nobody made any, there's no, because, for example, in Singapore at the marathon, expo, you can't just, do street marketing. You can't just walk around and talk your own stuff because you haven't brought a booth. Nobody gave you any restrictions. Oh, you're not a paid sponsor. You can't walk around and talk lekker. It was totally. Do you think so? Answer that question, and I have a follow-on question.
What's the question?
Nobody stopped you from being a freelance kind of brand because you hadn't paid to sponsor the event.
No, it was completely fine. I mean, it's a very open village, so there's no areas, anything. So it was very easy to go around.
Next question. What if you'd stood on the course in between aid stations and handed out free lekker gels? Do you think that they would have stopped that?
No, I think what's more likely, I think what I thought about maybe do next year is just to rent a van and sit on the parking lot where everyone is kind of coming by and just handing out lekker. I mean, just like Nike style.
100%. I think that's the beauty of our sport, is that you can still do guerrilla marketing. You can still absolutely just be the dude. And thinking about it, and again, we don't want to, you're very humble about lekker. I think you've done an amazing job. The brand is strong. Imagine you got a few people walking around in like the rabbit shirts, but lekker shirts with the beautiful branding on. Man, you could make a splash in a small village like that, right?
On this note, funny you say that, Rabbit is also a partner of Western States, and they provide the official Western States shirt. However, this will be the last year. Next year will be all Hoka. So
the whole event? Hold on, Hoka don't make shirts.
Well, maybe they will. So it is the last. I don't know that. I cannot confirm this, but I think that Hoka is the main sponsor. They just renewed sponsorship until 2020, another 5 years, which 2029. Yeah. So I think that also means that they will take over certain parts of the branding, and so like someone like Rabbit will not anymore do it.
But and did you get the feeling from a business point of view? So obviously you loved it. You walked around. You saw it all. And amazingly, like I messaged you, I'm like, you're going to be there at the end of the event. You're like, no. I'm here for the before event, and then I'm getting out of town, and because you're right, the cost of it. But did you get the sense from a business perspective that people were trying to dig into that? Or was the conversation mainly about, the stoke of the trail? Or were people talking about the realities that, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, nobody's making money from trail running? Did you get the feeling that people can feel it, the money coming?
Yeah, I do think by the amount of groups again, or like crews, the sponsors, and I also talked with a few athletes, how they choose consciously one brand to work with because they pay well, and they take care of the athletes, and they mentioned to me how great support they get from the crews and so on. So I do think people are fully aware of the professional part of this event now. And I mean, if you look at Instagram, it was also quite a bit of a branding exercise by many, many brands. And a lot of highlights about the bandanas. Is the Rabbit or the Hoka bandana better, right? Like the ice part. Then on the podcast, on the live stream, people talked a lot about this vest versus that vest from this brand versus that brand. So I think the commercial side is interesting. But I think my second part to this answer is that I also think it almost has reached its peak. And let me explain. I think the event in itself cannot grow, right? So it's going to stay like this, right? I think that's what I mean in terms of the event is just limited by number because of the national park and California rules. I think that's actually a good thing. The generation right now is coming to its peak. So Jim Wormsley is at its peak. Right? So I think now it's interesting to see who's coming next. We can talk a bit more about the athlete right now, because you already saw, maybe now we're going to the race, that certain people suddenly putting pressure on Jim Wormsley. Right? And I think that's where the Scott Jurek generation was the previous generation, and Tim Tweedmeyer and so on. And now we had Jim Wormsley and DeWalter and so on. But I think we're about to see a new generation coming. And this year's the Western States, you already got a bit of idea what's happening. The times are getting faster. People putting pressure on Jim Wormsley right now. Yeah.
So two things on that. So Jim, in his post-race interview that I watched, he didn't say it, but he said it. He said, I want to create a legacy. He was asked, you've won Western States, you've won UTMB, aren't you bored of it? What else are you going to do? He said, no, I'm going to come back and dominate these races for as many years as I can. So he's basically said, for all the years he has left at the top of his game, He will be doing UTMB and Western States and trying. Now, he can't do what Scott Jurek did, which was 7 in a row, but it would not shock me to see him going after 7 or 8 wins. So I think he could do that. And UTMB. In terms of the sports growing, I heard Dylan Bowman. I tuned in. So I've watched it since before there was live streaming. Many people have, not only me. And then a few years ago, they were like, "Oh, we just got 1,000 viewers," and the live streaming was shitty. And look, love Billy Yang, but I don't know if you have enough Starlinks. You know, the quality of the show is not top notch, right? Like, it is jumpy. If UTMB can do it, maybe just because they have more Starlinks. Anyway, let's not get into that. At one point on the live stream, I'm going to say it was my mid morning. I'm going to say with an hour to go, 2 hours to go, there were 20,000 people viewing. A few years ago, it was 1,000 or 2,000. So when you say it's got no more room to grow, why can't we have 1 million views?
We should be more succinct about what is growing. So I do think viewership is growing. Like, you're right. I mean, I watched pretty much the whole thing because I was in the same time zone. So 17,000 was pretty much where it has, and then up to 20,000 even. Viewership is growing for sure. Live streaming helps. They had 16 Starlinks, and that was biggest ever. The production done by Billy Yang was the most sophisticated ever. I do think there were some hiccups here and there. It is still a grassroots event organized by volunteers, so the budgets are very different to UTMB. You can justify it either way. I don't know. I mean, let it be what it is. But I think looking at the overall numbers of ultra trail people, and this has got confirmed again in another newsletter by Matt Walsh, it's going down. So still again, the numbers of this year, and we got the last update from the German ultra running website, is the number of people signing up for ultra races is going down, right? But the number of people doing 21K and 42K is going up. And so we have not reached yet the pre-COVID levels of ultra sign-ups than 2019, 2018.
That's an American view. If you had the whole world in China, there's a gazillion of them. I think if we took it, so I think you're right. It still seems surprising that there's less American, even though we did hear Eugene tell us that there were less people running Malaysia. But I have to believe, if you took a global view, are there more people running ultra? Has to be yes.
I think you're all just hyped up from your own runs, Ned. You might
Come
have
on.
endorphin overload. But I mean, who knows? I mean, I think there is, of course, numbers versus feeling. And you're right. I do think that places like India and China, we don't have the numbers right now. So it's just what we see. But yeah, I think there was I think what it is. I mean, the runners, at least here, they were all very positive. What did stood out, though, is that no one knew about Asia. So I talked to Dylan.
You said this.
I said, "Hey, Debo, what's going on? Have you been to Asia?" He's like, "Nope, never been there, but I want to go." I'm like, "Okay."
He's been to Japan because he ran UTMF, but he hasn't been to the rest of Asia.
He said he wants to go to Singapore, where it's on his map, on his radar, and that's a good sign, of course. But yeah, in general, the interest that I got by just saying, "Hey, we used to be based in Singapore, Vietnam," people are like, "Oh, that's so cool. What's going on? Tell me more about it." And as a brand as well, for us, Lecker, of course, it was interesting to share these insights and also to give them food, in this case, that they usually don't have. And that was also very positive that they enjoyed the fruits and whatnot, our branding. But yeah, I think the interest in Asia is there, but the connection hasn't been established yet.
So when you sent me that text, you were saying that they were all interested in it. It's so cool. I mean, not only were you one of the few nutrition brands being like the dude on the street, you're also this dude from Vietnam. I mean, technically from Germany, but you're from Vietnam, and you're providing like fresh Asian fruit.
Yeah,
and you're bringing it in them in. And I mean, again, we don't often promote Lecker, but you're almost creating a new brand because it's not quite gel; it's more like food. We've talked about this. And the feedback is great. And that must have been a pretty good feeling for you yourself to be this dude with this unusual product that seems to be catching on.
And I did try other brands, other nutrition brands as well there on the expo. And it's very interesting how it's just very different. It's just, I mean, I'm not sure it's worse or better. I mean, everyone has a different taste here, but yeah, it's very different. And I think that's where I'm personally excited about hearing and seeing it close up from those North Americans, let's say, also many Canadians there, and hearing from them, yeah, this is just something we never tried before, because we just never had the chance to have an energy bar made of dried fruits. And I'm like, oh wow, this is actually quite cool. And because we just launched our energy gel, so little announcement here on the podcast, I guess, but we're testing it at the moment quite a lot. Or we have sent it to a lot of people in Vietnam and Southeast Asia, getting feedback, and it's very harsh feedback. Like, it's very out saying, hey, this is this and this and that, and this is not great, and this can we optimize this? Because Southeast Asians have such a high expectations to food because it's made in Vietnam. They don't look at it as an American brand, look at it as a Vietnamese brand. So we have all this like refinement request, which I love. I mean, we are a brand to work with the community, so we take it very serious, and we do get better. But I think we also have already gotten so good because we have been working with Vietnamese and other Southeast Asian countries because of the taste expectations. If we would have launched it in North America, to be honest with you, Americans don't have the highest expectations in terms of taste. I'm not sure we would have created such a good product.
I'd never thought of it like that. It's such a good thing. So I told you I'm in Thailand. I'm in a place called Khao Lak. And for any of you who know much about Thailand, I mean, if any of you know Asia, the food's amazing. Not often, as much as I love Asia, are desserts very tasty. But in Thailand, we have something called mango sticky rice. And I mean, for those of you who are not watching, you can see Marcus's face. When you eat mango, and it's hard to explain if you don't, if you know it, you know it, with the sticky rice and the little coconut, if you made a gel that tastes like that, you would win every time, because that quality of that fruit, that fresh, and it really, I never thought of it like that. And I love America. For all of you Americans listening, love your country. I adore it. But your food, and I'm sure there's some great American food, but the general food, whereas the general food in the street market in Asia is much more tasty. I'd never thought about that, Marcus. You're right. The level of expectations of taste are just different.
Yeah, it's very significant. And again, I'm seeing it again. I've been seeing it with the energy bar the last 3 years, where we refined the recipe, I don't know, every other month just to make it better and better. And I think we've gotten to a point now where it really works globally, even in Vietnam. So now we're doing the same with the energy gel. And we receive really a shit ton of feedback, and it's amazing because, I mean, again, you as a founder, no ego, just take it and get better, right? And that's what you want. But I can see the benefit of that now happening for overseas export. Anyway, so that was interesting to just get the feedback. I mean, I'm trying to be very neutral here, and this is like really objective sharing. But let's talk the race. I think the race in itself was very interesting as well. And to be honest with you, a very exciting race to watch. I mean, I've just met all those people, so it was of course very exciting to me. But I'm sure someone who hasn't met those people just the day before was also quite thrilled by what's happening. So, Ned, what did you see? What was your impression from the race?
It started 8 p.m. Singapore time, so I live on the other side of the world. I turned it on, and they run up the escarpment, which is the first big hill, and at the top, nothing like the UTMB Courtney crowd, but there is a crowd of people. And this dude, Rod Favard, is leading up the top. And I'm like, I don't even know who this dude is. I've never heard of this dude. Like, what the hell? And then there was this huge group leading of like 15 men. And like 1 minute behind was Katie Scheid. So they was really close. So I saw that. I watched it for a little bit as they went off the top. And then obviously I went to sleep. I woke up early for my run, went off, and I listened to a bit and then came back. And, I thought it was, I didn't see when Rod Favard was leading Jim Walmsley, but it definitely looked like, a race that was a fantastic race with, as you say, some expected names, Hayden Hawks, Jim Walmsley, but some completely new names from the men's side. And obviously on the women's side, we were super excited because at one point it was America, China, Hong Kong. Look at that. The women's race was coming to Asia for us. So obviously, no surprise, Katie and Jim won. But overall, I think it was what could have just been a boring, dominating race was quite the opposite.
Yeah. I mean, Rob Forward, what a guy, man. Like, having the balls to challenge Jim Walmsley, I think, is great, and I loved seeing this. I mean, he was also, of course, destroyed at the end, and there's some videos of him really crashing into the finish line in Auburn. But yeah, amazing to see him leading and putting pressure. Very good.
So I listened to his interview with Byron Farr. Quirky dude, interesting dude, ran track and cross country at college, was never quite good enough, was not recruited, left college, did Ironman for a while, and then, as much as I found, he stopped Ironman because he had a job and it takes too much time. Ultra running, when you're training for Ironman, it's 25 hours a week. You can't run ultra that far. So ultra always feels like a step down. After you train for Ironman, ultra's like, it's only like 10, 12 hours a week. This is easy. I can do that. And that's why he did it, because he got a real job. And he said it was really interesting. He started in 2018 ultra running, turned up at a local 100K and won by miles. He's like, I must be good at it. And then he realized it was like a no-name little race in the middle of nowhere. He didn't realize what big boy play was in big races. But, 2018, 6 years later, and he's, jostling with Jim. So this guy has stepped up big time.
For sure. I think him coming second, also what a close finish. I think he was 16 seconds ahead of number 3, Hayden Hawks. Also great race by him. I mean, he really caught up to Rod and he pushed it through. He was quite all out at the beginning. Also the day before, he was very confident saying, I'm going to try to win this thing. So Hayden Hawks has a certain character and came third, which is very good. Daniel Jones, Caleb Olson, some people I haven't really come across much, to be honest with you. Also another generation of runners, I think, coming. Jonathan Albon coming 6th, his first, his Western States debut. So very strong first Western States in like 14 hours and 57 minutes. Incredible. Tyler Green. And then on number 8, we have Jiasheng Shen, the first Chinese, who was coming 4th, I think, last year, this year, number 8. He sounded disappointed at the end. He was not happy.
He was in 3rd or 4th for quite a long way.
Yeah.
He was in 3rd or 4th for a long way and just, I think, melted at the end.
I think that's not just him, actually. I also remember that Guiming Deng, another Chinese, was actually also to a 2nd or 3rd, like 25 miles in. He seems to blow up because he came only then 14th. Yeah. And then the other Chinese on number 12 is Ji Duo, who, I think had a pretty good race as well. Blake Slattengreen is another young guy who we should follow a bit more. He has long curly hair. He came 11th. And then number 13 is Petter Engdahl, who had a bit of a crash at the beginning and pushed through, however. So he didn't DNF in his first 100-mile race. So he chose Western States as his first 100-mile race. Also, I think very courageous to do that. And he pushed through as well. I think disappointing a bit was Dakota Jones, coming number 18th. He seemed to struggle a bit. He was hyped up quite a bit before the race, to be honest with you. He seems to have a big following as well. And then last but not least, I can also highlight Ryan Montgomery coming 20th. He seemed to have COVID. So it turns out his COVID test was positive, and he pretty much had diarrhea the entire way. So that sounds horrible to me.
Yeah, that's not gonna help you. You're not gonna. Well, unless you're Killian and you win with a broken collarbone like he does at Hard Rock. But having COVID and diarrhea is not going to help you win. That's for sure. And at a much lower level of sport competition, I can vouch that having diarrhea doesn't help. Because for many years I tried to qualify for Kona, 9-man world champs, and I finally did. Traveled all the way over there and got diarrhea 4 days before. And did the race absolutely sick as a dog. And I can confirm it doesn't help.
Yep. Some stats. So the finishing time of the 10th place male this year would have won the race the previous 35 years. Yeah. That's how fast it was. It was so fast. Hard to believe, but yeah, it's so Caleb Olson also, he finished 5th. He had the fastest 100-mile debut by a male runner in Western States. Yeah. So something is happening. People are getting really fast. Conditions were also not too bad this year. There was no snow really. It was getting a bit hot throughout the day, but otherwise it was pretty decent conditions, around 30 degrees Celsius in the hottest, and yeah, like that's like 90 something degrees Fahrenheit. Pretty good. So on the female side, I think also a very exciting race. We saw, of course, Katie Scheid pushing it. At the beginning, she was well under, I think, 25 minutes under Courtney Dauwalter's course record. So she really pushed hard in the first half of the race. We also know that, however, Courtney Dauwalter's record race from last year, she really picked it up in the second half. So I think Katie lost a few minutes there. So she didn't make it course record, but she ran the second fastest time as a female on Western States. Number two, you already mentioned Fujia Zhang from China. She came second. She ran a very solid race. I was very happy to follow her a bit more. She seemed to settle in quite well at the beginning and then kept the second place throughout the race. By the way, very nice lady. I talked to her quite a bit before as well. Speaks a bit of English, unlike some other Chinese runners, so it's a bit easy to communicate with her.
It was her that raced with Sun Maya recently in that epic race, correct?
Correct. So I actually asked her like about this, and she's like, "Yeah, I did race with Samaya, and she there was this like super crazy race where I think it's a much shorter but also much faster race. Where Samaya,
if any of you want to see what like it felt like a high level boxing match, those two, they were like sprinting every time I turned. I think it was 80K. Every time I turned it on, these two were charging. I mean, they were charging. Absolute blood sport. Charging was wild. And, I used to do a lot of horse racing and horse betting. So, following form. So now, Fuzhou Xiao comes second at Western States. I mean, that puts Sun Maya right there. I mean, we'll talk about Sun Maya in a minute, but she's going for CCC. It's such great that apart from Katie Scheid, who's I think it's interesting, pretty outlandish.
So Sumaya's going for CCC, you're saying?
Yes.
As well as Hao Ha. So we have Vietnamese runner Hao Ha and Sumaya from Nepal going to battle it out on CCC, which I think is super exciting. Finally, we see it happening. Fujia Zhang, however, is doing 100 miles. So I asked her, so she's not doing CCC. I think she seems more comfortable with 100 miles. She's not the fastest runner on the short distance, so I think she's going for the 100 miles run.
Fair enough.
So we don't have an Asian battle happening. Maybe I shouldn't say this sounds a bit wrong. But we don't have Asian competition going on. I've been to America too long now. I can't say these things anymore. I'm trying to PC,
That's all good, man.
But yeah, Fujia Zhang, very strong race. Very excited about that. Let's see what happens also with her and Lekka. I'm very curious. Maybe we do something together there. Again, that was great. We had Lin Chen, as you said, the third Chinese runner, staying on third position for quite some time, but she had a pretty big blister coming up at, was it mile 80 or something? She stayed at the aid station for a long time, and yeah, she couldn't continue. Unfortunately, she dropped out of the race, but she is someone to watch as well. She was mentioned a lot by people beforehand. Lin Chen, Chen Lin, depends how you put it, but yeah, it's another strong runner from China who could have come third, I think, if she wouldn't have had a blister. So Esther Zilek, the Hungarian hero based in Hong Kong, came then third. Super strong finish from her side. Also spoke to her beforehand. Super nice lady. Has a lot of fans, great crew. She came third just before Emily Horgood, which is the Zimbabwean who is now living also in California. Spoke to her too. Super nice. She's like a sunshine. It's unbelievable how happy she is.
They commented that she's a bit like the Courtney, the smile, always smiling, dancing down the trails.
I talked to her like, this is too much for me. I'm like, wow, you're so happy. I can't believe what I'm doing right now.
Love it.
Yeah. And then wrapping it up, I think there's Ingvild Kaspersen. I think she's from Sweden or Norway, but she also lives in Norway. And then Ida Nielsen. Ida Nielsen is worth mentioning. She's actually 42, looks like 28 to be honest with you. And she broke the master course record this year. Worth more mentioning is Rachel Drake, the wife of Tyler Green. She came 8th. Leah Yingling, we mentioned her before, the 6-day runner. She came 10th. Yeah, I think otherwise, I have to admit, a less exciting race for the females. I did think we're going to see more competition with the females this year, but it seems to have settled in quite early, unlike the men who had much more backup.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And, well, look, overall, great stuff. Let's just take have you got the times up there? So, and this is not to throw any shade on this gentleman because I'm a huge fan. So Ryan Sands, the South African top ultra runner who has made some epic. If for any of you who haven't seen, what's it called, On the Edge, his Himalayan crossing with his friend Rhino Griesel. If you want to see what hardcore really is, Touching the Edge, I think it's called, Rhino Griesel and Ryan Sands on a 1,400-mile end-to-end crossing of the Himalayas. Marcus, if you haven't seen it, it's on Red Bull. I mean, these guys, and at the beginning, Rhino Griesel, who was an accountant, is asked, because, I mean, these guys nearly died. Let's not mess around. These guys nearly died. Like, they went in to the deepest, darkest Himalayas. And on camera, with one of these close-ups, camera says to Rhino Griesel, was this worth dying for? And he looks, he goes, pretty much. But he's an accountant. And his view of, life on the edge. So I love Ryan Sands. And no buts, but just to say how the race has changed, if you have the times there, 2017, 7 years ago. Now, it was a race where I think Killian blew up and many people blew up. Ryan Sands is a fantastic runner, maybe not the absolute speed, but he won it 16 hours, 19 minutes.
Right. Wow.
Where would that have placed him?
He would have been just ahead of second female Fu Zhang. Yeah.
The world is changing, right? The speed is changing.
Yeah.
Now, it was an epic hot year. This year was cooler. Some other people. And look, hey, Ryan won. I adore Ryan. Ryan won. I remember watching it. I was so happy for him because he's done some epic stuff. He's raced a lot in Asia as well, a lot of adventure racing. But 16:19, what did Jim do? 14:13, 2 hours quicker. Crazy, right?
Again, just also mentioning it again here, the fastest, so the finishing time of the 10th female this year would have been the winning time of the last 38 years. Right? That's also how fast the female got. Right? Yeah, incredible. It was one of the fastest races ever. Also, 62 females finishes this year, the sixth most in Western States. The youngest finisher was 23 years old, coming in at 23 minutes. Incredible. Oldest finisher came at 29 hours, 67-year-old. So quite impressive what happened this year.
I don't know if you saw, but the first legally blind runner just missed the cutoff by, I don't know, but minutes, I believe.
Yeah, by minutes. Yeah. He was also celebrated a lot before the race, by the way, so he got a lot of attention before. He was part of the elite introduction on the Friday, so it was
good.
Amazing.
And look, talking about age, as people may know, I want to run 100 miles when I'm 100. I know that's illogical. In Ironman, Inui Hikeda, I think maybe I pronounced his name wrong, a 91-year-old gentleman who has finished an Ironman at 89, last week tried to finish an Ironman at 91 years of age, did not make it, got onto the run course but was timed out, but I think he'll be back. So just to give everybody hope as they get older, a 91-year-old dude is still finishing Ironman. So for all you ultra runners getting older out there, plenty years.
That's a hope for you, Ned.
100 miles at 100, man, I'm doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I think just post-race, quickly chopping up that part, the feedback has been very positive. I think it was on all of our channels. There was some criticism on the live streaming. Billy Yang got very defensive on Twitter about this. That's just one way of looking at it. People are emotional after the race. No, no surprise. The quick other thing about budgets here in terms of business, I did dig up the general cost of Western states and the revenue. So if you're interested to see this quickly, the revenue of very important to say, it's a not-for-profit, right? So Western states are not-for-profit. As a California-based not-for-profit, they made $804,000 in revenue 2022. And they had expenses of $748,000. I think just the cost of live streaming was $110,000 2 years ago. So that's the latest filings. You can see that throughout COVID, there's a bit of a bumper, but in general, even compared to pre-COVID, the revenue has doubled to $804,000, and of course also has now expenses doubled because of the investment in technology. Quick one to compare this to UTMB Group. As far as I can tell from the latest filings, the revenue 2022 was 10.4 million, so
Yeah,
12 times bigger than Western States.
but they still lose money.
And they lose money. Correct. Western States doesn't lose money. They're not for profit, so they balance it out every single year.
And just to give a wild different example, in Singapore this weekend, we had a UTMB qualifying points race called Ultra Trail SG, run by a small club called Trailblazers, run by the Jasmine Go, who's represented Singapore, very capable lady, ultra runner startup. She started this club just herself, I don't know, a few years ago. Her team helped, what's our guy's name who we had on the show last week? Who
Chris,
runs, Chris, yep, who helped him set it up. She's profitable. She runs a small running club that puts on some races, and at the smallest scale, she's profitable. So there's all this talk about not being able to make money. Jasmine Go's making it happen.
Nice. I mean, yeah, we quickly covering other races. We had the Ultra Trail Singapore, where also a few very good runners participated. What did you see?
I actually ran. I was running around in the forest, so I didn't. I turned up at the start. I didn't really see it. Jeff Campbell, the Canadian Hong Kong guy, won 50K, 3 hours, 58 minutes, 57. Not bad on Singapore trails. Stingray was second. Stingray was leading, but got a bit hot. And then How Ha came in just ahead of Chris Timms. Chris Timms is the local amateur superstar in that he, is a teacher, but he's obviously pretty speedy. And Vanya came in second. There's this great photo. I don't know if you saw on Facebook, but Vanya was leading How Ha, and she's like, "I'm going to keep this photo forever. I was leading How Ha at, I don't know, 10K, 15K in. So good on her." I think it was beautiful the way she posted. She's like, "Look, it was super fun to run with somebody like How Ha, and I just happened to get a photo of me leading her. I will keep this photo when she wins UTMB or CCC or whatever."
For sure.
But yeah, good on her. And look, major races. All right, what is this? Marathon de Mont Blanc. Let's go.
Marathon du Mont Blanc happened in La France. À La France, sorry. There's a wrong gender. But yeah, we had the other big race in the Mont Blanc besides UTMB. It's a 42K marathon race around Mont Blanc. We're putting it up because we also had Somaya Buddha racing there, who need to now figure out.
13th in the ladies. I think she was a bit disappointed, but
correct.
I don't think she just has the pure speed for these ladies. I think.
Yeah. So 13th, the Kailas Fuga team. That's where she's part of. We have Mont Matters running as well, coming 7th. We had the Chinese runner Miao Yao. We also need to watch out for her. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with her. She came 3rd. And yeah, so I think just putting it out there that there was this happening in France. I think everyone is getting ready for the big UTMB in a few months' time. And yeah, we'll have another big festival, or probably the biggest festival in trail happening in Chamonix in a few months.
Absolutely. Let's do it now. We're coming up on the hour. I believe you have to go in a minute. A quick rant, if I may. And this may be an unfair rant, but I'm just going to say it. Marcus shared with me an article about a unsponsored project, a company called Bandit that makes clothes. Good on them. And look, I'm not against, and maybe it was just the way the article was written, but basically a company is not sponsoring athletes by giving them uniforms, cash, flight tickets. But they're not sponsoring them, let's be clear. What they're doing is they're unsponsored athletes. And this is actually very cool marketing, to be fair. A company called Bandit, a guy called Tim West, is saying these people don't get proper sponsorship, so we're giving them contracts that have months break clause. They will not have our logo on. They will not be Bandit athletes, but they're sponsored by Bandit, and it's called the Unsponsored Project. I mean, this is guerrilla marketing at its best. So, Marcus, what do you think about the unsponsored athletes who are getting cash, uniforms, and flight tickets to the Olympics?
So funny you take away that from that article, which we'll post in the show notes as well. But the key message I got out of the article was that athletes who are now participating in all the Olympic trials are not getting sponsorship from brands that early anymore, apparently. And however, they have to wear clothes, of course, gear, and they don't want to just wear the one from Nike and Adidas and give them free marketing. just also on the side, we didn't cover it, but the Olympic trials this year has the biggest viewership in 30 years, apparently. So there's another huge entertainment component we didn't cover. And yeah, the live viewing is important. And if you do wear a Nike or Adidas shirt or short, but you're not sponsored for them, you give them free marketing, right? And you don't want that. So it's
Again,
basically showing a middle finger.
good on them. Look, honestly, good on them. Marcus, oh my God, I forgot to tell you, my friend. My mind has been altered.
Ta-da!
I listened for 3 hours to the founders of the Enhanced Games talk to Joe Rogan.
Did you, Christian Angermeyer?
He is comes across as a thoughtful, smart, intelligent, interesting dude who takes a lot of psychedelics. Anyway, let's not get into it now because we don't have time. But I just had this takeaway. Maybe at another time we should discuss this. When I heard of first of the Enhanced Games, which was, drug, anyone can take whatever drugs, legal but not banned. So they don't support illegal drugs, but if they're not illegal in society, you can take them. And of course, the reality is you're not allowed to take these drugs at the games. One stat I don't really care about. 44% of Olympic athletes claim they were doped. I don't really care about that. But when asked, isn't it a bad role model to tell kids that they can take drugs to boost their performance? So Marcus, here's a question. And this is what Christian Angermeyer said. He said, do you want to know about a bad role model? He said to Joe, please guess who are the two major sponsors of the Olympics. Marcus, I ask you this question. Who are the two major sponsors of the Olympics?
McDonald's and Coke.
Yes. The worst drugs on earth, short of actually not short of much. And he was like, sorry, you're telling me that allowing an athlete to take a testosterone boost is worse for our kids than shoving Coke in McDonald's? Oh, I love Coke. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely adore Coke. But I'm also well aware I'm a grown adult and I shouldn't drink Coke because it will kill you. For another time, the rights and wrongs in society of sport, and I'm not saying my mind's changed that the Enhanced Games is the thing, but it really changed my mind on the perspective of how we perceive performance-enhancing drugs, how society perceives them, who makes these rules. I think the Enhanced Games may not be the flash in the pan we think it is. And I think it's
I'm with
going
you.
to be a thing.
They are. I find it always interesting if people push thinking and the boundaries and conventions. We should get Christian. I actually know him, so maybe should see if I.
You know him?
I should maybe see if I could get him on the podcast.
What? He was a thoughtful dude. Oh my! He's made a lot of money, obviously, in bio. Yes.
In biotech and crypto and whatnot. He's always on the forefront of things. He pushes the frontiers, and he chooses now sports as another one, which tells you something. But if he's in sports, it means something is happening. So for sure, I think we should talk about that. And also, just want to highlight on a similar note, I saw something on Reddit that people were complaining that some of the pacing this weekend at Western States were all juiced up. So where the top athletes apparently this is nothing validated, and I'm now clearly spreading rumors and Reddit is spreading rumors, but some of the pacers are known for taking EPO, and so people are like, why is this happening?
But look, okay, Marcus, for another show, caffeine's a performance enhancing drug. I notice if I'm running a long way, I stop at a 7-Eleven in Singapore, I buy Monster, it's got taurine in. Like, it's clearly a performance-enhancing drug. There's no messing about. Like, I can just tell. It just is. I feel 100 times better afterwards. Well, I would love to get Christian on. Man, I mean, that was as interesting as it can be. And, what's the reality for our sport? We can't afford drug testing in our sport. Like, we just can't. It's too expensive, right? It's just, there's no money unless UTMB or Hoka sponsors it. And what's the reality? And let's face it, we don't need steroids to be stronger, but I guarantee you endurance can be endured more if somebody's taking something, and how do we want to deal with that? So for another show.
My last 2 cents on this, and we can wrap it up, is we are sitting here in a time of our humanity where we will see more, humanoids coming up. We are becoming more integrated with technology, and Neuralink is a good example, implementing technology into your brain. So I think we will have much more of the conversation. What is being human, what's not being human, and this is just part of it for me. And we'll leave it as it is. Thank you, Ned.
Well, actually, Marcus, we had a guest that was meant to come on. We had to freestyle. I feel we can freestyle all day. I can sit and chat with you all day, but we have other lives. I'm going to admit to our dear viewers that for no reason, apart from my disorganization in life and the fact I'm on holiday in Thailand, and I did not write a drop. That's on me. Shame on me. So I'm going to make a statement of intent instead of a drop. And you can take some inspiration, because Marcus always says Ned's drop of inspiration and wisdom. So there's absolutely no wisdom here. I'm going to make a statement of intent, and then I will come back to you on the next show to tell you if my statement of intent was correct or not correct. On this weekend, as you all guys know, no secret, I love backyard. I have a goal for 48 loops in the actual World Champs this weekend from my house. I am going to run for 30 hours continuously. I'm going to do 30 loops. I've never done 30 before. My best is 28. So I'm going out to break my personal best just from my house. I'm going to start approximately, because I land like midnight back from Thailand. I'm going to start about midday. I have a loop marked out because I've done it a few times. So I'll be going from midday Saturday till 6 p.m. Sunday. And my statement of intent is that I will do that 30, break my PB. So no drop for this week, but a bit of inspiration. If you are thinking about doing something this weekend, do a little bit extra, do a little bit more, and I will report back on the show whether I achieve it or not. But as you know, even if I don't, it is a good thing to try.
Thank you for the intent. Thanks, Ned. We can't wait to follow you and hear your drop next week. And by this now, we're doing a mic drop and wrap up the show. Thank you so much, Ned. Anyone out there, subscribe. Let us know what you think, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys. Take care.